When we speak about the heart, we often think of it as a fragile place, a place where wounds settle, where memories linger, where disappointments echo louder than victories. But the truth is, the heart is far more powerful than we give it credit for. It has the ability to carry worlds within it, love, fear, gratitude, regret, hope, and pain, yet it continues beating. And the reason it continues, even when life pushes it to its limits, is because Allah designed it to be healed, restored, and lifted by Him alone. When a person reaches that moment where they feel broken beyond repair, when the weight inside their chest feels heavier than their own body, that is not a sign of weakness. That is the heart calling out for its creator. You see, people will try to comfort you. They will say they understand, they will say they feel your pain, and many of them genuinely do. But even the kindest heart can only reach the surface of your sorrow. Only Allah can reach the depth. Only Allah knows the exact place inside you where something snapped, where fear settled, where hope faded, where trust was betrayed. And because He knows, He heals with perfection. His healing doesn't just cover the wound, His healing transforms it. What you once thought would break you becomes the very thing that strengthens you. What you thought was the end of your peace becomes the beginning of a deeper connection with Him. But before that healing happens, many people run everywhere except to the one who can truly help them. They search for comfort in distractions, in entertainment, in people, in temporary escapes, in habits that bury the pain but never cure it. They say they are tired, overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted. But the truth is, it's not tiredness. It's the result of trying to survive life while being disconnected from the one who gives life meaning. It's like being lost in a desert and refusing to walk toward water. The more they avoid turning back to Allah, the more drained they feel. Not because the heart is weak, but because the heart was created to be fueled by divine closeness, not worldly noise. When Allah says that it is only through His remembrance that hearts find rest, He is not making a poetic statement. He is stating a law, a reality, a spiritual truth as real as gravity. The heart finds rest in Him because He is the one who created rest. And even when you feel like your heart is scattered into pieces shaped by heartbreak, loss, disappointment, sins, guilt, and mistakes, Allah gathers them gently. He doesn't heal you with force, He heals you with mercy. He doesn't heal you with blame, He heals you with love. He doesn't heal you all at once, He heals you in the exact measure your heart can handle. Sometimes Allah allows your heart to break because certain things needed to fall out of it. Certain attachments, certain illusions, certain expectations, certain people. Sometimes He allows a crack because light needed a way to enter. Sometimes He takes away what you thought you needed so He can give you what will truly nourish you. But none of this can be understood if a person looks at his heartbreak only through the lens of pain and not through the lens of divine wisdom. People often ask, if Allah loves me, why did this happen to me? They don't realize that sometimes the heartbreak asterisk is asterisk the love. Because if that heartbreak saves your faith, if it brings you closer to prayer, if it teaches you humility, if it forces you to raise your hands again after a long time, if it removes arrogance, if it exposes who is sincere in your life and who isn't, then that heartbreak is a gift, not a punishment. Allah never takes something from your heart unless He is replacing it with something better, either in this life or the next. The problem is that we expect healing without turning to the healer. We expect peace while neglecting the very actions that create peace. We want Allah's comfort without giving Allah our commitment, and then we wonder why we feel empty. But emptiness is not a curse, emptiness is a sign. It is the heart's way of saying, you have drifted, come back. And when you come back, you will notice something remarkable. The healing doesn't begin from outside. Allah begins healing you from inside. You start seeing clarity where confusion used to live. You start feeling courage where fear used to sit. You start experiencing stillness where anxiety used to dominate. That is Allah's work. That is Allah restoring what the world damaged. But healing is not always gentle. At times it feels like Allah is pulling something out of you that you're still holding onto. Something you convinced yourself was good, something you believed you couldn't live without, and in that moment you might feel loss, but later you realize it wasn't loss, it was protection. Allah removed it because it would have cost you your peace, your dignity, your faith, or your future. And He removed it because your heart was worth protecting. If only people knew how valuable their hearts are to Allah, they would stop giving them away so easily. The heart becomes stronger when it learns that pain is not the enemy, distance from Allah is. Pain is sometimes the bridge that leads you back to Him. It softens you, humbles you, clears the fog from your vision, and reminds you that this world was never meant to satisfy you. The only place where the heart feels whole is in closeness to Allah. That is why even when everything in your life is falling apart, the moment you say, Ya Allah, something inside becomes steady. When you recite a verse that speaks directly to your struggle, something inside becomes calm. When you bow your head in sujud and let it all out, something inside becomes light. That is not psychology, that is spiritual reality. Your relationship with Allah becomes the foundation upon which all healing rests. You start realizing that peace was never found in circumstances, it was found in surrender. Hope was never found in people, it was found in dua. Strength was never found in motivation, it was found in trust, and the moment you reconnect with Him sincerely, you start feeling alive again. Not because life became easier, but because your heart stopped carrying the world on its fragile structure and started relying on the one who can hold the universe. That is why when the heart breaks, turn to the one who made the heart. When the heart feels heavy, turn to the one who lightens it. When the heart feels lost, turn to the one who guides it. And when the heart finally heals, you will look back and realize that nothing was taken from you. It was only replaced with something better, purer, and more aligned with who you are meant to become. And this is why I remind you, the heart that turns to Allah never stays broken. People often think discipline is just about routines, schedules, or waking up early. But discipline is much deeper than that. It is not simply a habit, it is a spiritual state. And when we say you're not tired, you're undisciplined, it is not an accusation. It is a reminder that Allah has already placed within you the strength you need, the capacity you need, the mental clarity you need, and the emotional resilience you need. What people call tiredness is often the weight of misalignment, a heart disconnected from purpose, a soul lacking structure, and a life without direction. Real tiredness is physical, but the exhaustion most of us feel today is spiritual, emotional, and mental. And the cure for that is not more sleep. The cure is discipline rooted in sincerity. You see, Allah has designed the human being with enormous potential. Potential to rise, to change, to grow, to improve, to build, to create, to transform. But potential without discipline is like a seed without soil. It exists, but it never becomes anything. The difference between the one who succeeds and the one who remains stuck is not that one was gifted more energy, or more intelligence, or more talent. The difference is that one person chose discipline, one person chose consistency over comfort, routine over excuse, and commitment over emotion. When someone says, I can't, most of the time the truth is I don't want to. When they say, I'm tired, often the reality is I haven't trained my soul to push beyond its laziness. Discipline is one of the greatest spiritual acts you can perform. Because when you discipline yourself, you are saying to Allah, I am serious, I am committed, I am responsible, I value the gifts you gave me. When you discipline your prayers, your time, your habits, your goals, and your emotions, you are showing gratitude. You are demonstrating that Allah's blessings on you, your body, your mind, your ability, your hours, are not being wasted. But many people live life reacting instead of planning. They wait for motivation, as if motivation is something that falls from the sky. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation is emotional. Motivation depends on mood. One day you feel inspired, the next day you feel empty. One day you want to change, the next day you want to quit. If your life depends on motivation, you will always be unstable. But discipline does not depend on how you feel. Discipline means doing what you need to do even when you don't feel like doing it. Discipline removes the emotional roller coaster and replaces it with stability. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline says, it must be done. When you approach your life with this mindset, something extraordinary happens. Allah places barakah in your efforts. Because Allah helps the one who helps himself. You cannot ask Allah to lift you while you remain seated. You cannot ask Allah to open doors while you refuse to walk. You cannot ask Allah for strength while feeding weakness in your habits. Allah has placed principles in this world. Just as fire burns and water flows, success follows discipline. Just as night follows day, growth follows consistency. These are not random outcomes. They are spiritual laws woven into creation. Look at the people who changed their lives. They didn't possess something miraculous or mysterious. They simply refused to stay where they were. They fought their laziness, they resisted their excuses, they built systems for themselves, and they held themselves accountable. And the interesting thing is that discipline is not natural, it is trained. Just like a muscle, it grows the more you use it. The first step is always the hardest. Waking up early hurts at first. Establishing a routine feels uncomfortable at first. Resisting distraction feels boring at first, but everything valuable in life begins with discomfort. And the reason many people give up is because they expect ease. They want progress without pain. They want results without effort. They want change without sacrifice. But that is not how Allah designed the world. Allah could have created life without struggle, growth without effort, and success without discipline. But He didn't, because the struggle itself is purification. The effort itself is reward. The discipline itself is transformation. When you train yourself to show up even when you don't feel like it, something inside you shifts, your heart becomes stronger. Your mind becomes sharper, your soul becomes clearer, you start winning battles within yourself that you used to lose. You begin seeing beauty in structure, peace in routine, and strength in self-control. You begin to understand that the greatest enemy you ever fought was your own undisciplined self, and that victory over yourself is the greatest victory of all. And it is not just about worldly goals. Even spiritually, discipline is essential. The one who prays only when they feel like praying will never maintain prayer. The one who recites Quran only when the mood hits will never taste its sweetness. The one who makes dua only when life becomes painful will never build connection. The blessings of Allah pour upon those who commit, not those who fluctuate with their emotions. Discipline protects your heart. It keeps you away from sins that come from boredom, from empty time, from lack of purpose. It protects your mind from negativity that creeps in when you have no direction. It protects your soul from heaviness that accumulates when you live without intention. A disciplined person is not just organized, they are spiritually safe. And when you align your discipline with seeking Allah's pleasure, everything transforms. Waking up early is no longer a burden, it becomes a moment of peace. Controlling your impulses is no longer suffocation, it becomes freedom. Staying consistent in your worship is no longer a struggle, it becomes nourishment. Because when Allah becomes your purpose, the discipline becomes natural, your heart supports you, your soul strengthens you. Your intentions elevate you. You begin to realize that Allah does not want you to live a scattered life. He wants you to live a focused one. He wants you to honor your potential. He wants you to rise above the laziness that keeps you from becoming who you are capable of being. He wants you to use your time with wisdom, your energy with intention, and your abilities with gratitude. And discipline is the tool that turns intention into reality. It is the bridge between dua and achievement, between hope and change, between dreaming and becoming. The person who disciplines himself is the person who honors the life Allah has given him. And this is why I remind you, you are not tired, you are simply waiting to unlock the disciplined version of yourself. When people speak about healing, they often imagine it as something that comes to them while they sit still, something that arrives without effort, something that simply happens with time. But healing is not passive. Healing is not something you wait for. Healing is something you walk toward. And the moment you begin taking even the smallest steps, you will notice something subtle but powerful. Allah begins opening doors for you that you did not even know existed. Your effort invites His help, your sincerity invites His mercy, your movement invites His support, because Allah never asked you to finish the journey, He only asked you to start it. You cannot ask Allah to heal your heart while continuing the behaviors that break it. You cannot ask Allah to bring you peace while surrounding yourself with noise. You cannot ask Allah to strengthen you while feeding habits that weaken your soul. Every dua for healing must be paired with steps that align with that dua. And these steps do not have to be grand. They do not have to be dramatic. They only have to be sincere. Healing begins with a decision, a small shift, a quiet commitment within yourself that says, I want to return to the person Allah knows I can be. Sometimes people wait for a perfect moment to change. They tell themselves they will fix their life when they feel motivated, when they feel ready, when the pain becomes unbearable, or when something pushes them hard enough. But waiting keeps them stuck. Waiting creates stagnation. Waiting convinces them that they are helpless when in reality they are only hesitant. Allah does not heal hesitation. He heals those who step forward with humility and effort, even if they stumble, even if they move slowly, even if they are still carrying pain. Every step you take towards Allah is medicine. Every moment you resist a temptation that once controlled you, your heart gets stronger. Every time you choose sincerity over distraction, your soul becomes clearer. Every time you turn away from something that harms your mind, your peace expands. These changes may seem invisible at first, but Allah sees them. He counts them, He multiplies them, and He responds to them. Because healing is not an event. Healing is a partnership between your effort and Allah's mercy. Some people believe they are stuck because nothing in their life changes. But when you look closer, you realize it is not that their life refused to change, it is that they refused to change the choices they were making. You cannot plant thorns and expect roses. You cannot water a weed and expect fruit. You cannot feed your heart with harmful things and expect it to feel light. Healing requires honesty. It requires you to look at your life and ask, what is damaging my heart? What is feeding my sadness? What is increasing my anxiety? What is pulling me away from Allah? And when you identify those things, you must be willing to let them go. Not all at once, but one by one. Allah never burdens you with sudden transformation. He heals you gradually because your heart needs time to adjust. But He asks for effort because your effort proves your desire, and Allah honors sincere desire. When you take the first step, even if it is small, even if it is weak, Allah takes care of what comes after. But when you remain motionless, you block your own path. Healing is a journey that requires movement. Look at your daily life, look at the routines you follow, look at what you consume, online, in conversation, in your private moments. Look at the people you surround yourself with, look at the environments you stay in, look at the thoughts you allow to circulate in your mind. These things shape your heart more than you realize. Healing requires you to build an environment that aligns with what you're asking Allah for. If you ask for peace, create space for peace. If you ask for strength, remove what weakens you. If you ask for clarity, silence the noise that clouds your mind. And sometimes healing requires sacrifice. Sometimes you must let go of people you love because they drain your spirit. Sometimes you must walk away from habits you enjoy because they poison your soul. Sometimes you must set boundaries with yourself because you know the places where you fall. Healing is not always warm. It is not always comforting. Sometimes healing feels like breaking before rebuilding. But Allah does not let you break without reason. He breaks you only to reshape you into someone stronger, wiser, and closer to Him. There are moments in life when you feel stuck at a crossroads. You know what you need to do, but you fear the difficulty of doing it. You know the steps you must take, but you hesitate because those steps require effort, and in that hesitation, your heart suffers. But the moment you choose the right step instead of the easy one, Allah places a strength inside you that you did not have before. Because when you move toward what is right, Allah moves everything else toward you. Do not underestimate the power of one sincere change. One prayer prayed with tears can shift your entire emotional state. One day of discipline can break a chain of bad habits. One moment of honesty with yourself can free you from years of denial. One decision to walk away from something harmful can save your heart from long-term damage. Healing does not require perfection. It requires sincerity and consistency. Allah does not ask you to be flawless, He asks you to strive. And the more you strive, the more Allah opens your heart. He removes the heaviness you carried. He replaces confusion with clarity. He wipes away emotional chaos and replaces it with calm. He gives you hope after you thought hope was gone. He gives you strength after you thought strength had abandoned you. Because when you show Him effort, He shows you miracles. Healing is not a mystery. It is the natural result of aligning your outer actions with your inner prayers. It is the process of becoming who Allah intended you to be. It is the result of choosing growth over comfort, sincerity over distraction, and devotion over negligence. When your actions rise to meet your dua, Allah sends blessings you never expected. And this is why I remind you, your steps toward Allah are the very steps that heal your heart. When a person finally understands that Allah is the anchor of the heart, something profound begins to shift inside them. Discipline no longer feels like a burden, a chore, a heavy responsibility they drag through each day. Instead, it becomes a natural extension of their faith. Their actions stop being driven by mood or motivation. They become driven by purpose. And when purpose awakens inside a human being, especially a purpose connected to Allah, everything in their life begins to realign in a way that feels effortless, even though effort is still being made. It is the kind of effort that feels light because the weight is shared with the one who strengthens hearts. So many people struggle with discipline because they are trying to force themselves into a lifestyle that has no spiritual foundation. They try to organize their time, but their heart remains scattered. They try to build habits, but their intentions remain empty. They try to stay consistent, but their purpose remains worldly, and anything rooted only in the world will collapse under the pressure of the world. But when your discipline is rooted in Allah, it becomes unshakable. It becomes something that flows from within, not something you must constantly fight yourself to maintain. When Allah becomes your anchor, the inner chaos that once pulled you in 1,000 directions begins to quiet down. You feel a clarity that you cannot explain logically. You feel a sense of direction even when the path is not fully visible. You feel a strength inside yourself that surprises you. This is the barakah that comes when your heart is tethered to the one who never fails you. You no longer rely solely on willpower, which is limited, fragile, and inconsistent. Instead, you rely on purpose and iman, which are sources that never run dry. Many people drift in life because they are anchored to the wrong things. They anchor themselves to people's opinions, to temporary goals, to emotions that fluctuate, or to habits that comfort them in the moment but harm them in the long run. And because these anchors do not hold firm, they find themselves constantly pulled by the waves of distraction, procrastination, fear, and inconsistency. They make progress for a day or two, but then a moment of weakness undoes everything. They try to change, but the change feels forced, unnatural, unsustainable. But the moment you anchor yourself to Allah, your creator, your sustainer, the one who knows your limits and your potential better than you do, your entire relationship with discipline changes. Discipline becomes something you do for him, not for the world. It becomes an act of worship, a form of gratitude, a demonstration of sincerity. And worship, when done sincerely, is never empty, heavy, or draining. It is nourishing. It fills the soul rather than exhausting it. Think of someone who wakes up early for Fajr. If they do it grudgingly, as a chore, as something forced, then it feels heavy. Every morning becomes a battle. But if they wake up knowing that this moment is a gift from Allah, a meeting with their Lord, an investment in their own peace, then they rise with intention. The discipline becomes beautiful, the discomfort becomes temporary, and the barakah becomes lasting. The same applies to every form of discipline in life: studying, working, exercising, controlling your speech, managing your time, improving your habits. When these actions are tied to the pleasure of Allah, something extraordinary happens. You stop procrastinating because your purpose is higher than comfort. You stop fearing failure because you know Allah rewards effort, not outcomes. You stop giving excuses because you know every step you take is being recorded by angels. You stop falling apart emotionally because your heart is not anchored to the world, but to the one who owns the world. When Allah is your anchor, you also gain something else: stability, emotional stability, spiritual stability, mental stability. You no longer jump from one desire to another, one idea to another, one goal to another. You begin to choose intentionally, you begin to act deliberately, you begin to say yes to what matters and no to what harms you. You stop running after things that drain your soul. You stop chasing validation. You stop trying to please everyone. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. You start living with purpose instead of impulse. And discipline becomes easier because now you understand why you are doing what you are doing. When the why becomes strong, the how becomes manageable. But when the why is weak, no system or routine can save you. Even the most organized planner cannot discipline a heart that lacks purpose. But a heart filled with faith can discipline a life even with minimal tools. And when Allah is your anchor, even the difficulties of discipline become meaningful. When you resist temptation, you feel proud not because you are strong, but because Allah helped you. When you remain consistent while others give up, you feel gratitude because you know it is not your willpower, it's divine support. When you break old habits and replace them with better ones, you taste a sweetness that only the disciplined heart knows, because discipline is directly connected to spiritual growth. People don't realize this. Discipline is not about suppressing yourself, it is about directing yourself. It is not about controlling every part of your life rigidly. It is about prioritizing what aligns with your values. It is not about perfection, it is about consistency, and consistency becomes natural when you live with Allah in mind. You begin to see your time as a trust, your energy as a blessing, your actions as investments in your dunya and akhirah. You stop wasting hours on things that weaken your heart. You stop engaging with people who distract you from your purpose. You stop treating your life casually because you now understand its worth. And the beautiful thing is this: when Allah anchors your heart, you no longer fear the storms of life. You remain steady even when your circumstances are chaotic. You remain patient even when things don't go your way. You remain hopeful even when doors seem closed. You remain disciplined even when you're tired, because your strength is not coming from yourself. It is coming from the one who never weakens. And once a person reaches this level of alignment, where their intentions, actions, discipline, and heart are all connected to Allah, their life transforms in ways they never imagined. They begin to rise, they begin to grow, they begin to shine. Not because they are extraordinary on their own, but because they placed Allah at the center of their life and everything else fell into place. And this is why I remind you, when Allah becomes your anchor, discipline becomes your nature.